All right, so let's talk about death for a second. I don't mean like in a philosophical, where do we go, what's out there, uhura kind of way. But let's talk about death as a plot device, because death has been the favorite go-to plot device for writers since almost the very beginning, probably because it is one of the only two events that you can actually say all human beings participate in: birth and death. It's the only two things that truly unites humanity. And as such, there has been no better way to raise the stakes of a situation than to kill off a character. So it's a question of how is the death going to be used by the author, and how does death push the story forward? For instance, with the Harry Potter series, the deaths were often, it felt to me, more along the lines of them going, "Oh my God, they killed so-and-so," just to get that initial reaction. And in very few instances was that death kind of felt further on. Maybe Sirius Black, you could argue, and of course Harry's parents. Game of Thrones, on the other hand, killed off so many characters and did it so often, which was more of the plot device of nobody is safe. Don't get too attached. Don't start thinking you know how this is going to come out, because we will kill the character you love just like that. South Park did it as a joke. Oh my God, they killed Kenny. Comic books have used death as a cheap way to raise the stakes, but in reality for them it's more of a prolonged vacation. And playwrights tend to use death as the inciting incident. So many plays begin because someone died. You take, Hamlet as the most famous example, but, nowadays, a lot of modern plays have characters coming together to the funeral or in the aftermath of a acquaintance or family member dying. And in those instances, the death is used as, again, that inciting incident to bring those characters together to deal with their issues with each other, as well as any issues they may have had with the departed. And in a lot of cases, that departed character is someone we've never even met. All right? And such is the instance with the film we are discussing today, because it was originally a play and then adapted for the big screen. And what I'm talking about is 2001's Kingdom Come. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is a family favorite. I've been off for a little while, was able to get back home for a few weeks in the midst of all this craziness, and this is one of the films that my mom and I really love to watch together. And the story basically is almost exactly what I just laid out for you. Bud Slocum drops dead one day, and his various family members all converge on his home for the funeral to deal with their individual issues with each other and to deal with how they felt about Bud Slocum as a person. And the story is one of those, since it's an ensemble piece, it's one of those ones that's broken up into various subplots based on the other characters. So you've got his youngest son, LL Cool J, and his wife, Vivica A. Fox, who have been trying to conceive a child, but Vivica A. Fox has miscarried several times, and LL Cool J has been suffering from depression. He's a former alcoholic and has a very strained relationship with his father. You have the eldest son, Junior, played by Anthony Anderson, who sunk all the money he had into a business where he invented a machine that would clean parking lots. He, of course, that went belly up. He's lost all his money. He's cheated on his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. You have Loretta Devine and Darius McCary, feuding mother and son coming in. and all kind of converging on the house of Bud's widow, played by Whoopi Goldberg, who is kind of the emotional lightning rod for the whole film. So let's talk about this film. First thing, as you kind of got from the description I gave, this has a superb cast. Just one of the best casts, I've seen for an ensemble comedy in a long time. LL Cool J, Vivica A. Fox, Jada Pinkett Smith, Anthony Anderson, Loretta Devine, Whoopi Goldberg, Cedric the Entertainer has a small part as the local reverend, and they all work so well off each other. Whoopi Goldberg, interestingly enough, since Whoopi Goldberg is the only tried and tested comedian of the group, she's actually the emotional center of the piece. She has a few one-liners here or there, but she is mainly the quiet widow. And her character arc is much more subtle than the other characters because we don't really see much of her. It's all in her interactions with everybody else. We are told through her basically everything we know about Bud Slocum. That he was mean and surly. He was not a nice guy. He was purposefully mean to her. We get this sense that maybe it wasn't a physical thing, but it was an emotionally abusive relationship. So now she is trying to process this, that the difference between the man she married and the man who died, and the man she lived with, through how the other characters are dealing with it. LL Cool J does a great job. He's carrying a lot of the emotional weight. His character has the biggest arc. Feeling like he's now the head of the family, feeling that he had a very strained relationship with his father, and dealing with he's kind of the guy that's dealing with all of the craziness, and because nobody else, all the family craziness is being dropped right on him, and he can't really deal with it. One of the best lines in the movie is when he's talking to his wife. He says, "When I die, don't tell nobody. Just bury me out in the backyard. Tell everybody I left you." Anthony Anderson and Jada Pinkett Smith are phenomenal as a feuding married couple. Anthony Anderson cheated on her. She finds out. Jada Pinkett Smith plays that kind of, I don't know what the right term is. Everybody in the family has one of these. Every family has one of these people. It's that person who's kind of more attention driven. They always need to be the center of everything. They always need to put on a show. Whatever they're feeling, they need to blow it up, so that they make sure that they're the one who's getting the focus in the room. And she plays that role perfectly. And Anthony Anderson playing this kind of whipped, beaten down by life man-child who, in light of his father dying, he's the eldest, but he's, the least mature of all of them. But this movie belongs to Loretta Devine and Darius McRae. Darius McRae, most people probably know from my generation, as Eddie, the son on Family Matters, the Oracle show. But these two steal the show. Loretta Devine, I think most families have someone like this in them too. She is the overly religious, overly holier than thou, domineering personality, whose son, Darius McRae, is, on the wrong path. He's on unemployment. He's drinking. He's sleeping with a lot of loose women. And my God, these two are the funniest thing when they are on screen together and when they are interacting together. My mother and I love this movie, and one of our favorite scenes is where they're driving to the funeral, and they're in the car, and the car breaks down, and they're feuding over the radio. She wants to put on, gospel music, and he's trying to listen to hip hop, and they're fighting back and forth, and she finally breaks the knob. She's like, "Ha ha! Jesus got the knob!" He's like, "That's real good, Mama, because Satan got the car keys." and she starts hitting him with her Bible. They, to me, and especially Loretta Devine, especially her, she is the comic genius of this fucking movie. Like, every scene she's in, she steals it. Her reactions, her line readings, there is just comic gold in her. I love her in this movie. Can't say enough good things. What I like about this movie, though, apart from the comedy, and it is very funny, it taps a lot of humor out of this situation. Again, a tired situation that everybody's done, so you got to figure out what are you going to do different. It mines a lot of comic gold out of it. But what sets this movie apart from a lot of other films is that it takes the time to make its characters three-dimensional and give them all sympathy, give them all flaws, and make them humans that you relate to and you watch. One of the things I love about this movie is watching it, again, with my family. We're watching it going, oh, that's Uncle so-and-so, that's Aunt so-and-so, that's this one, that's us, that's us, They make the characters so relatable that you can see yourself and your family members in them, and especially at a big family gathering, like a funeral. My mother always says that Italian funerals are like three-ring circuses. And this film definitely kind of taps into that vibe. But it makes sure to give its characters pathos, as well as not just making them, one-dimensional archetypes, but showing, okay, this is where this comes from. Yes, Jada Pinkett Smith's, is this kind of eccentric, too much, loudmouth, but her husband did cheat on her, and her husband did lose all of their money, so it's not like she's got nothing to complain about. Anthony Anderson is kind of the screw-up, but, he gets this really great monologue where he kind of says that, he didn't mean to be a screw-up. He tried something. He shot. He did what we're all supposed to do, or we're all told we're supposed to do, go for that brass ring. And he did. And he failed. And he's trying to deal, and, that he did cheat on his wife because he was trying to overcompensate for his feelings of inadequacy and failure. Even Loretta Devine gets, some great moments in there where we see that, yeah, she is kind of a comic character, and she's someone we're supposed to laugh at for eccentricities, but it's based in a real place. Her religion is something that gives her strength to face down a lot of the problems that she had, and just because she's fallen out with certain people doesn't mean she doesn't love them. Again, this film makes its characters real and gives them all. I think everybody has a good moment or a good section in this film that's strictly theirs, where their character grows, overcomes, and is going to be better going forward. And you got to give big ups to Whoopi Goldberg, of course, who is, like I said, she's kind of the lightning rod in the center of it. Everybody else is acting crazy around her, and she's kind of the one at the center of it all, going, okay, and dealing with everything very quietly. She's got some amazing monologue. Whoopi Goldberg shows off her acting chops in this one. There's also a really great scene. I don't want to spoil. I don't know if this film really spoil much in. There's a really great scene with LL Cool J. Again, his character is a recovering alcoholic, and through all of this, he's kind of being pushed back towards that the bottle. And there's a great scene where he's sitting outside of the liquor store, and he's praying. He says, God, I know there's nothing in there that's going to help me. So if you can find some way to stop me from going in there, I'd appreciate it. And then, Cedric the Entertainer, as the Reverend pulls up and says, hey, we were just driving to we're just going to drive to the church. Why don't you come with? He says, yeah, I will. So it's a small thing. It's a small moment, but it's a real important moment of growth for the character. I think it's also interesting, the character that they're all there to mourn. Again, someone we don't meet. We hear his voiceover at the very beginning, but we never actually meet him as a person. So this is not just people coming to terms with the death of a family member, but it's coming to terms with the very complicated emotions of an abusive family member. They never say that he was physically abusive with any of them, but we know that he was, Whoopi Goldberg wants his tombstone to say mean and surly. So that is a complicated thing to build a comedy around. And the film, I think, does it very well. That they may not have liked the man, but they did learn from him. And they did, you can learn things even from people you don't like. Is this movie perfect? No. I think the climax of the film leaves a little something to be desired. The actual funeral scene. That's the major problem with the film, mainly because it goes into toilet humor, which I fucking hate. With Cedric the Entertainer and his wife eating at a Mexican restaurant the night before, and he gets the runs, so he's farting and all this, and having to go make noisy shit, during the service. It's the ending just feels a little pat to me. Not in a way that ruins the film, but in a way that just, kind of weakens it a little bit for me. Still, though, I also have to point out, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that, man, this movie has a gorgeous soundtrack. I'm not a big one. I'm not an incredibly religious person, and I'm not a huge fan of religious music, but the gospel singing in this is gorgeous. Man, they packed the soundtrack with some amazing songs from some amazing singers. So yeah, that's not often that you notice the soundtrack in a good way, but it really, there's some gorgeous singing in this. So for a non-musical, that's pretty important. But I really love this movie. Again, it's always hard to review a comedy because aside from going through scene by scene and going, this is funny, this is funny, this is funny. I think the film does a good job balancing out its comedy. Yes, it has that one little instance of toilet humor over here. It's got verbal humor. It's got big laughs. It's got little laughs. It's got character-driven humor. It's got a lot of everything, folded into the makeup of it, which, when all taken together, makes a really endearing film. The last thing I want to say on this, and this is a little weird, but I was thinking about this as I was watching it this past summer. I think this is a good film for people to watch right now. As we know, at this point in history, as this is being recorded, we're in the midst of kind of these campaigns to educate yourself and, whatnot and what have you. This film is not Just Mercy. This is not Amistad. This is not Ghosts of Mississippi or any other of the films that people kind of put out there to go watch this and educate yourself. It's not dealing with any large social issues, but I still think this is an important film for people to see, especially now, because I think sometimes, this is coming from me, again, white male, so I don't know, I know my opinions aren't very important, I'm uneducated and all this, but one of the things that I felt watching this movie, especially this last time, is that we as a society, we focus a lot, and not unjustly so, on what makes us different. And that's important. We should, because those inadequacies in our society are huge and need to be addressed. But I think sometimes it's important to see a movie like this that focuses on our similarities. What do we have in common? And how, a family is a family. Whether they're black, Italian, Jewish, Hispanic, white, whatever, but a family is a family. And most families have similar dynamics, and they have similar personality traits in them in terms of these archetypes that we see in this film. As I said, watching it, my mother and I are picking out, that one's you, that one's me, that one's, uncle this and aunt that, and so on and so forth. And it's this wonderful experience. It's sad that, one of the only commonalities we as a society and we as a race have is death. But, it is a shared experience. And how we deal with that and how the family members act at certain things is a universal statement. And I think sometimes it's good to watch that. I think the black actors and the black lens that the film is shot through gives it personality and gives it an identity all of its own, but it's also one that we can see ourselves through. I see myself in this movie. So I don't know if I'm saying this right or if I'm saying it as well as I'd like to, but I think this is a great film sometimes. Take a breath, take a step back, and recognize how similar we all are. And if we can maybe do that a little bit better, it will help us fix the inadequacies. I don't know if any of that makes sense. But that all being said, Kingdom Come is still a delightful little movie. It's a funny as hell movie. I've seen it multiple times. I laugh every time. And it's one I enjoy sharing with my family. So maybe it's one you can enjoy sharing with yours. Just a thought. All right. Well, it is great to be back. I don't think that review was as good as some of my other ones. But, hey, taking a month off, just getting back in the saddle. Got a lot going on. But Drive Home Reviews, Forgotten Gems, series to series, we're all here, we're all back, and we're ready to keep going as this crazy old world of ours just keeps spinning around. So thank you for joining me, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.